Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dana, your garage sale ninja here. And it is, let's see, December 22nd. It's a Monday. Christmas is coming up. Things are getting kind of quiet on the home front here. So I have been just working on finishing up some loose ends. I just finished putting together an FBA shipment from my weekend sourcing. And I have several boxes are going to be going out here probably tomorrow morning, as soon as I get them all prepped and packed. And I've been working on a little project here for a while that I wanted to share with you. Basically, it's a little write-up I did called Sourcing Opportunities. So, where do we, as a flipper, where do you find product? There's a lot of ways to get product, but primarily a flipper is looking at finding oddball items, different kinds of things like that, that they can then sell in a different marketplace for a profit. You pick up things at garage sales, yard sales, estate sales, things like that, that you can then turn over for a pretty good profit. This is primarily the business model that I use at the moment. And so I just kind of want to address that and let you know what kind of stuff that I'm doing and what my thoughts are about some of these things and what I've found with my experience over the last number of months doing this. So garage sales and the yard sales and things like that fall into several categories. You have just a regular garage sale, which would be just like you or I, just clearing out, getting ready, either moving or just deciding to clear out a bunch of junk that you got sitting around that you don't want anymore, stuff in the garage or in the basement or wherever you happen to have it stored that you're tired of looking at or don't need anymore. And you want to generate a little extra cash rather than just donate it to somebody or to a thrift store or something like that. You actually want to try to sell it. So you set up a garage sale, yard sale. Sometimes they're called tag sales. Depends on the part of the country. I'm in Southern California, and we pretty much have yard sales all year round. Other parts of the country, not so much, especially when you get inclement weather with snow and things like that. The yard sales pretty much have shut down in those parts of the country now. Another type of yard sale you will frequently see, especially out here, is I call it a serial yard sale, which means they're kind of an ongoing basis. They may be every week, once a month, every couple of months, something like that. But it's a more of an ongoing, established business that somebody is running out of their home, where they are not necessarily selling their own personal items. They're sourcing, and their sales venue just happens to be a garage sale, and they just advertise a garage sale and run it as a little small part-time side business. It's kind of like going to a swap meet, except they don't have the official swap meet location, which again is weather-related issues with that. If you're in that part of the country where we have snow and things like that. But it's kind of like a swap meet, except you don't have to pay for a space and whatever. You just got your front yard that you set up as a swap meet. I see a lot of those out here on a pretty common basis. Another style is either a multifamily or block sale or neighborhood sale. And these are sometimes once or twice a year, and all the people in the area in that particular neighborhood kind of get together and coordinate and advertise, be multiple family sales. There can be anywhere from 2, 3 families up to 15 or 20 yard sales, all within a block or two of each other within that same neighborhood. This is a very efficient way to go sourcing, believe me. You can go park your car one time and basically just take your bags or your cart or whatever you use and just cruise up and down the street and blow your entire budget in one stop, rather than kiting all over the countryside and driving, many, many miles to hit individual garage sales. I really tend to focus on multifamily sales. And the last thing is going to be an estate sale, and we'll address that at a specific chapter or comment section later on. So what are garage sales? How do you find them? Basically, depending on the area of the country that you're in, as we mentioned, they can be a yard sale, garage sale, tag sale, or if you're in the UK, they call it a boot sale, because over there they are essentially selling out of the trunk of their car. And in Brit terms, the boot is the trunk, and the bonnet is in the front where the motor is. In most cases, so just boots and bonnets. So they call it a boot sale. So it's the same thing as what we would have as just a yard sale, except they often will go to a location like a parking lot or something, something a little bit more official, and all get together. And so it's kind of like a swap meet, except it's run out of the trunk of everybody's car. So anyway, like I said, climate dependent and things like that. So these sales are typically held on weekends, although it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule anymore. I find yard sales and garage sales, stuff like that, in the middle of the week, especially in my area here in Southern California, where they have them pretty frequently, and there's a very large population of people that are looking for bargains, or especially this time of the year, looking for stuff to shop for Christmas and so forth and so on. I see them starting as early as Thursday, and so you don't really need to limit yourself to just sourcing on Saturdays or Sundays. I start looking on Thursday. I will often go to a yard sale or an estate sale on a Thursday, a Friday, and Saturday morning. So I have 3 opportunities to hit different areas and load up enough to build for me, an FBA shipment, or sourcing for eBay and stuff like that. I can acquire a pretty good bunch of stock over a 3-day period, and usually just the mornings. And I don't bother with going back the second day and things like that and try to get bargains. I just, whatever I find is what I find, and that's what I go with on that. So the traditional way of advertising these kinds of sales is they go out to the nearest to closest intersections around their place and put up a big old sign and with arrows and addresses and things like that, and point people that are just driving down the road. I hit those quite often, but I also am a little bit more organized. You can look online. There are actually websites that specialize in doing that. There's also physical publications such as, well, Craigslist is an online source as well, but there's also things called Penny Saver, the Green Sheet, local newspapers, things like that. If they have them in your area, sometimes they have local neighborhood area newspapers, things like that, and people will often advertise there. One of the places I find most of my yard sales, because it makes it easier, because it's more organized and it's mapped out, and I can see lists and sometimes even post pictures of their yard sale, and they promote them a little bit more professionally that way. One of them is just called yardsalesearch.com. And just to mention, as a site, you will also occasionally find estate sales mentioned in that same venue. So I can find both places at once. Then there is a separate one that is primarily just for estate sales. But anyway, that's a good place to find them, and you can map out a route for yourself and see where you're going, and just do a quick search on Google or whatever your preference is for a search engine, DuckDuckGo or whatever, and you find lots of sources on where to find yard sales. So let's talk about the types of sales. We have regular or normal garage/yard sales. Most of us are pretty familiar with those. You may have even had them yourself. It's typically something that's used to get rid of excess personal property that's no longer wanted or needed anymore, has been replaced, or maybe even be broken or something like that. But it's just too good to throw away or donate. So to have a sale, it helps generate a little extra cash. And but most of it is, surplus or unwanted property. Okay, so the quality can vary substantially from brand new unopened stuff to surplus goods to seriously distressed or broken junk. It can be all over the map, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not good and not a candidate for being flipped, because even broken things can be disassembled and sold in parts. There's a gold mine there that people don't realize, but we'll talk about that a little later. So let's see here. The other type is like I mentioned earlier, the serial or a reoccurring garage sale, and that is more of a semi-permanent kind of a thing that you can go back there week after week. I have a couple of those that I've left cards at, and those people call me when they're going to have a sale, and he has warehouses full of stuff that he's acquired from different places, from storage auctions or places like that. I ran into one guy. He wanted to sell me uh, music cassette tapes, a mixture in a bulk sale. He just had this small warehouse full of 50,000 items he wanted to sell all at one time for like 10 cents a piece or something like that. Still would have been, $500 worth of stuff. And then what are you going to do with 50,000 audio cassette tapes? There's still a market for them, but it might be difficult to offload that many. So anyway, these are kind of little cottage industry businesses that people are just kind of skirting by the edges of the commerce regulations. You're in a residential zoned area. You're not technically supposed to have a business where people actually come and do transactions and buy product from you, things like that. So the local ordinances may have an issue with it. So, but these guys seem to manage to keep it enough on the down low that they get traffic, but they don't get popped by the cops and stuff like that. So next thing is your multifamily block/neighborhood sales. They're typically much more organized. They can happen on a fairly regular basis. Sometimes they do them annually, semi-annually, even monthly. And kind of lumped into these is also going to be your church rummage sales and things like that, because those are sourcing products from a lot of different people that are bringing them in to either donate to the church or to just have a centralized location where the church parking lot is the venue when they all put out their tables and benches and things like that full of stuff. They can be located at one single address where multiple people bring their stuff in, and you're dealing with 2 or 3 different sellers, which can be fun to try to find a price on something. How much is this? Oh, that's Bob's, and they got to go track down Bob and find out how much it is. But it still can be useful because you're hitting a lot more product in one spot and seeing a lot of product from a lot of different people. So that's good. And these types of sales tend to be a little bit more prevalent in the upscale areas, which is good. Those upscale neighborhoods mean that the quality of goods is typically much better. I find that I have a tendency to really source out of the more upscale areas as far as garage sales to avoid just getting, tons and tons of children's clothes and things like that, which I have no interest in. Now, if that's your market, then that's fine, but that's not my market. I'm looking for toys, but I find the vintage games and games in very good high end games in good condition in the more upscale neighborhoods, much higher quality. The next thing is going to be estate sales. So the most traditional sense, basically, an estate sale occurs when somebody passes away and their remaining heirs basically seek to dispose of all that person's personal property, so they don't have to deal with it. They don't, that's something they don't want. Often they're already been picked over by the family members who wanted that particular item or whatever, and all that's handled and it's all picked out, and then whatever's left over they're selling off. And the main difference with those is that this is not unwanted stuff by the original owner. It was something they cherished and kept and wanted. So it's not like garage sale quality merchandise. It's actually good merchandise that is just surplus now, and the family is getting rid of it. So part of the problems with dealing with a scenario with especially with a family-run estate sale, is you got the emotional and family issue baggage get mixed up about disposing that property. The person or people attempting to do it have no idea of the value of the property they're trying to dispose of. So they'll either price it way too high because there's emotional baggage with it and reasons, excuse me, that they think it's worth a lot because it's grandma's hutch and grandma always loved that hutch and all that kind of stuff. So they think it's worth, they think it's an antique, and it's not necessarily. It might be mid-century, it might be whatever, but it's not necessarily antique, because they don't understand what an antique really is. The other thing is that they may have very valuable property and are giving it away at pennies on the dollar because they don't know what it's worth in the marketplace, and they don't have time. They've flown in from out of state. They're here for 3 days to help settle the estate and get it out the door, and their focus is get it done, get it gone, get it out of here so I can go back home and I don't have to deal with it anymore. It's a problem for them. So you can make some good buys on it. So more commonly these days, it is you're more likely to find an estate sale that's run by a professional company. At least I find that here in Southern California. There are many, many companies that have built a business model around just doing estate sales, and they come in, and that can be good. There's good and bad with that. One thing is that they understand the business. They deal with the family and the emotional issues involved, and they basically insulate the public, the buying public, from all of that stuff, and so the family itself is typically not necessarily there, and so you don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Um, and it can get a little sticky sometimes if they are anyway. They're also very internet savvy, and they know how to do a lot of research, and because they're in this business, they have a pretty good idea what the market is worth and what the products are worth, the goods that they're selling out and stuff like that. They also many times have a network of cronies and buddies that frequent the sales, and they're on a mailing list. Just a tip here is, if you want to pursue that particular market, make friends with those people, get on their mailing list, and attend their sales. Once you get known, you sometimes get the perks of being able to pre-shop and see the stuff ahead of time and do a little research before you just bust in the door and start looking for stuff to buy before somebody else grabs it and walks off with it. It's a little less stressful to be able to shop it ahead of time and know what's going to be there. Another side note is that the estatesale.net, I think it's called, is one of the places where I source. They often have information about people to call, when the sale is going to be, the hours, what the transactions, whether it's either all cash or they do take credit cards. Some places even take resale licenses. I've used that before to avoid paying tax, and I just keep track of what I purchased, and I invoice it all. And so that's cool. So get on their mailing list, and they'll notify you when they have a sale in the area. So that's always a good thing to do. Personally, I used to kind of avoid estate sales because I had this idea that the perception is that there really was no good bargains available to a limited budget shopper, like a flipper might tend to be. If you don't have boatloads of money to just go out and throw down on stuff like that, and you don't know that area, know that marketplace of the items that you're looking at, you can lose a lot of money, or you at least invest and tie up a lot of money, a lot of working capital for a long time on something that you're not exactly sure is going to sell or how you're going to sell it. So, there's some usually awesome deals, but it's only if you had thousands of dollars to throw down, a moving truck and bodies to help you move stuff, and a warehouse to store things in. There's a lot of money to be made, but you have to have more of an established business in place to do that. Well, that's all somewhat true. I also found that the feeding frenzy on those things is usually over. The antique furniture, the silver plate and silverware and jewelry and items like that, and artwork and statuary and all that kind of stuff, collections of Chinese statues and, Ming Dynasty vases and things like that, which are way out of my range. And I don't know enough about it to even think about buying that kind of stuff. But that's where the pros go. They totally ignore the rest of the stuff. They ignore all the flipper friendly stuff, which is going to be, small appliances and tools and things like that in the garage and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I found a lot of really cool things. That's typically my source for vintage games, and vintage games flip for a buttload of money, man. I tell you, it's not uncommon to sell a vintage game for $60 to $80 that I purchased for $1. That's not. I've done it numerous times, believe me. So that's always a good thing. So don't pass up on the estate sales. There's money to be made there if you know what you're looking for, and a lot of small appliances and sometimes China and things like that. But that starts to get spendy because you're buying an entire place setting for 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever of everything of China, and that could be hundreds of dollars. And unless you really know your business in that area, you could be sitting on a boatload of China for a long time. I've done it, believe me. I know. I made my money back, but it took me months to do it. Another place we're sourcing is going to be thrift stores. So the generic term thrift stores can cover a pretty wide spectrum of places. They can be, chain type. that are associated with some charitable organization like Salvation Army, Goodwill, Savers, various kinds of things like that. Or they can be little small for-profit organizations and mom and pop type stores and stuff, secondhand stores, bargain outlets, bargain basements, whatever. What I'm finding these days more and more, since the advent of the flipper is really starting to really come to the fore these days, is the pricing at the bigger chain types can really be all over the map. Many of them also have their own internet presence. Goodwill has online auctions and things like that, and so their pricing is starting to get a little crazy. It used to be you could find some really good bargains on there pretty commonly. Walk in the door and just find a bunch of stuff at a really good price, and get, especially working their bargains and things like that, bargain days and price off days and stuff. You can find shirts and pants for 50 cents or $1 or $2 and stuff like that you can flip over for 20 or $30 and sometimes a lot more, depending on what it is. And things like books and records and tapes and appliances and clothing and shoes and all that kind of stuff is available there. But now the prices are starting to creep. Now you're starting to see, you go in and find what you think might be a good, desirable item for a piece of clothes that you used to pay $1 or $2 for. Now they're pricing it at $15 and $20 a piece, which takes away any profit margin that you might have had as a flipper. So they're really kind of cutting their nose off to spite their face. And they'll give you all kinds of stupid excuses about, oh, well, this is meant for the poor people. Well, you've priced it out of their reach, so now it's no longer going to the poor people. And basically, you've cut your own throat because the people that know the value of this stuff are not going to buy it at $20. And the poor people can't afford to buy it at $20. So who's your customer? Who are you servicing? Usually some corporate wonk that doesn't know anything about anything, is just looking at bottom line and trying to make money, and so they figure raising prices is going to make them more money. Actually, it just costs them sales. So anyway, enough with that. You can still find stuff there. It varies. You can just check around and keep looking. There's lots of thrifting opportunities still out there. I still typically find games. I used to pay $1 for the games, but now I'm paying $2 and $3, sometimes $5 for a game. But I'm much more selective about what I pick. And I take the time to open it. They tape everything shut so you can't see what it is, because I've been bitten by that. It's all taped shut, and you assume, well, maybe it's complete, and they're just keeping it taped shut. Well, I don't go for that anymore. I actually cut the tape off and open the boxes and look inside to see what the conditions are. And if it's in good condition, it looks like everything is there. Doing a quick inventory, then I'll pay the three or $4 or $5 for it, especially if I've scanned it and I can find that I can sell it for $40 or $50 or $30 at the bottom. It's still good. There's still money left in it, but if you don't check, you're screwed. Also, another thing I tend to do is I carry a kit with me. I have bring a Scotty peeler, a little thing to take labels off, because they'll often put a label right across the barcode so you can't scan it. I take small flathead and crosshead screwdrivers, like jeweler screwdrivers, to open battery compartments to make sure that the batteries aren't all corroded and crapped out. I actually carry an assortment of AA's and AAA's and things like that with me to actually put batteries in something to test it to see if it actually works, because I've been bitten by that before, gotten home and found it all corroded all to hell, and basically it's just a piece of junk that gets thrown back in a box and donated back to the thrift store again. So you get smarter after a while and you figure out how to work that. And and then another variation on these whole things is called, they call them lots of things, weigh and pay, whatever. It's essentially a source for like Goodwill or one of these other places where all the stuff that either hasn't sold or they don't sell because of a certain policy things. They have strange policy ideas about what should be sold and what shouldn't be sold, and they send it all to a central location, which is going to be an outlet store or a weigh and pay, which is basically they fill these huge trolleys, bins with just piles of junk and roll it out the door, and then the feeding frenzy starts and all the pickers go in there and start grabbing stuff out and throwing it out and checking it over and stuff like that. And you pay by the pound typically on most things, so or a bag full or whatever, and So that's how that goes. One of the things we strongly recommend the guys that do this is that you wear a pair of heavy gloves and stuff like that, because there's often broken glass and sharp metal edges and things like that in there, and you can get cut up pretty badly without even realizing it, rooting around in these things. And then also you find one shoe, and well, great, it's a great shoe. Where the hell's the other one? You're rooting through the bin. It might not even be in that trolley. It might be in another one, the next door. So it's a different venue, but a lot of money to be made there because it's dirt cheap. I mean, so you can buy 50 pounds of junk for $50 or $30 or something like that, and you can get a lot of stuff. So you really need the seasoned veterans of this basically have sort of what we call a BOLO list, BOLO, be on the lookout for, and they know what they're looking for, and they know what has value, and they just grab that stuff right away and throw it in their basket and walk out of there with 3 and 4 baskets full of stuff after an hour or so. One of the really untapped areas is small appliances and vacuum cleaners and shampoo machines and things like that. People often pass them over because they have no way to test them, or they test them and they don't work. And they think, well, it's broken, I can't sell it. Nobody wants to buy a broken thing. But au contraire, people want parts. If you are a little bit handy and have the time and the place to do it and the skills to do it, you can often get more for the parts than you could for the actual item if it were working. People, if you think about it for a minute, somebody's got this $100 espresso machine sitting on the countertop, but one part is missing or broken or something, and it's useless. They can't use it without it, and they have an option of either find the part or just throw it away and buy a new one. If they throw it away, it goes into the weigh and pay or into the thrift store, and you buy it for pennies on the dollar and part it out and make your money back. Or they have to buy a new one. So if they can find the part they need for 10 or 15 bucks, and rehab that unit and get it back online again, they're happy. They're happy to pay the money for the part, and you just made money off of parts on something that was broken. You tore it apart. I did it recently with a Oric vacuum cleaner. I picked it up at a yard sale, and I plugged it in. It worked. It was fine. Everything else, and I flipped it over, and it was missing one pair of wheels on one side of the bottom plate. But I used to be in the vacuum cleaner business many years ago, so I knew the value of these things. I know they're expensive, and I bought it for $5. And I could have probably sourced the wheels and put it together and sold it for 25 or $30. And because it's a good vacuum, good well-known brand of vacuum, desirable vacuum. But the other thing I found out also is I started doing a little research on eBay, and found out I could sell the parts, the handle and the cord, for $30. So I whipped out my electric screwdriver and field stripped that thing into a box of parts and took pictures and listed all those parts, and they listed out for over $125. So what I paid $5 for, I can make quite a bit of money on when I sell all those parts. So don't pass up on that kind of stuff. The other thing is replacement carafes for coffee brewing systems and coffee pots and Cuisinart coffee pots and things like that. The carafes always get broken. People are washing them and they bang them in this thing and bang, it's gone. And a new replacement carafe from the factory or from the place that sells the parts is $30 or $40. So here they have a expensive coffee maker they can't use because they don't have a carafe, and it's again just sitting there dead on the countertop. So they buy a new coffee maker, or they do want to find a carafe. So if you find carafes, I sell them all the time for 15 or 20 bucks a piece, and I paid 50 cents or $1 for them at a garage sale somewhere. So again, pay attention to parts. It's good money. What else? Let's see. That's basically about it. So there's lots of places to source. You just have to think out of the box sometimes, and be aware of your pricing and what your marketplace is. So when I go out and source, I'm pretty agnostic about what I'm sourcing for. I just find something that looks like it's a good price. It's something I can either scan with my phone or do research on my smartphone at Amazon or eBay or someplace like that, or Craigslist. So I'm mentally cataloging the stuff that I'm picking up. Okay, this is going to Craigslist, this is going to here, and that's going to there. And I just go out. So I go out 3 days in a row and I fill up the back of my car with stuff, bring it all home, process it through, sort it out based on more research on the computer, and then start making up shipments. FBA, then listing stuff on eBay, and other stuff gets listed on Craigslist. I bought a bunch of snow clothes. Pay attention to what's going on in your market currently. Here in Southern California, we just had a big storm come through and put down a lot of snow up up on our local mountains over here, which is only a half an hour trip away for a lot of people. And I know for a fact that parents want to take their kids up to the snow, but they don't have the clothes for it. I found a bunch of snow clothes at a garage sale for like $1 a piece, and bought a bunch of them, and I made back $40 on the stuff I've sold so far, and I still have a jacket left, just on snow pants and bibs and things like that were for kids. And I paid $1 for them and sold them for $15 and $20 a piece. The next on Craigslist within 2 days of buying them. So you just have to be sharp and think about what you're doing. So that's about it. So I'm going to sign off. Enjoy. Hope you enjoyed it. Like the video if you see it, and tell your friends. Bye bye.